Bert! Get him! Yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Holy wazoo, it's the 4th of February, which means in 1 month, Pheasant Fest will be over. You know what won't be over? The memory of the smell of the polyurethane I'm using for our bar top extension. You know, last year at Pheasant Fest, we had a 10-foot bar with our bar stools and our friends and our sponsors. K9 Athlete was in there, and Jack was in there, and Gunner. This year, we had to expand it, okay? I mean, Gunner will have product there like last year, but Marshwear is going to be there. Now, they're not going to be selling you anything, but they're going to be having some really cool discounts and coupons for you. Come by. We're going to be clothed by. Literally, is that a word, clothed? Yeah, my whole crew will be clothed by Marshwear. Yeah, and you'll be able to tell. But we needed more room. We needed more bar top. We need more room to socialize. So I just got done building a 6-foot addition to a 10-foot bar. That's how big this thing is. And, you know, we couldn't do this, though. We literally couldn't do it without our title sponsor. And Pheasant Fest won't be the same these days going forward without our title sponsor. Do I need to tell you who it is? No, I mean, everybody knows who it is. Because Onyx is throwing another after-hours party at Pheasant Fest like they did last year. It's going to be 9 o'clock on Friday, the 1st of March, at the Ramkota Grand Rushmore Hall. There'll be live music and free beer from Line & Kugel, public land access pull tabs. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be, because the beer's already free, and if you get a public land access pull tab and you win something, I don't think you can win public land. Anyway, we'll find out what that's all about. But anyway, free beer from Line & Kugel, that's worth showing up. And on top of that, if you go now, you got like 1 week to do this. You go to Onyx. I know these slash things are hard to do. You go to Onyx and you'll find it. I'm sure it's on their main website. But just in case you have to do this, go to onyx.com/hunt/pheasant-fest. Okay? That's what it says here. And that's going to put you in the running. If you want to come in a night early, I'm going to be there a night early. Okay? And you go and enter the giveaway. And the giveaway is for backstage passes, tickets, and a night's lodging, daily admission to the fest, the rest of the fest. Okay? That all ends February 15th. So you got to go there. You got to hit onyxmaps.com/hunt/pheasant-fest #giveaway for that one. Okay? That's a lot, but I'm sure you can navigate it. You know what would be easier? Just come to Pheasant Fest, okay? And come to the booth. We're going to be there. My truck's going to – 90% of my sponsors are going to be there, okay? Onyx, my title sponsor. Gunner Kennels. Boss Shot Shells. Well, I'll have some Boss Shot Shells there, okay? But they won't themselves be there. They're going to be at Turkey. They are going to be – if you live down south and you're going to Nashville, go to the Boss Shot Shell booth in Nashville. They're going to have a big space there, and they're up against all of them, and they're going to have more people around their booth than any other one. Garmin. Okay, Garmin's going to be there at Pheasant Fest. First time in 10 years that Garmin's been there, and it's because of my connections with them and my begging and pleading. And they're like, okay, we're coming. And to kind of kick this off, I don't know what kind of specials you're going to find at the show, but right now you can go on Garmin's website. And I don't have a www/ all this stuff. You just go on Garmin's website. From them right now, you can save $100 on the Alpha 200. That's on sale. You can save $100 on a TT15X or a T5X dog collar. Okay? Those are like $300 collars, $100 $10 off, okay? Do I have a promo code for them? No, because we deal with MSRP. Can Garmin do this once in a while? Of course they can. So there. And they're going to be there. W Supply is going to be there. Walton's won't be there, but they'll be there next year. Because, they have everything but the meat, and they didn't have the time this year with other trade shows to come to Pheasant Fest. That's okay. I love them. You love making wild game with their stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. Mossberg's going to be there. I thought Mossberg was going to be on my corner of my booth. I think they're 2 aisles over. Doesn't matter. You're going to be able to win a Mossberg shotgun at my booth. And what you can do is go over to the Mossberg display, look at guns, come back, sign up. There's all kinds of things you can win. The 4-wheel camper is going to be there. Mine and another one right across the aisle from our big booth. Now, I don't think we're going to have any giveaways for that. It's a pretty big purchase, but wait till you see the 4-wheel Model M. Okay, wait till you see it. When you see it, you're going to want it. And one of the reasons you're going to want it, just a small reason, but kind of a big reason, is because Alder Grove Dog Box made me a custom dog box. Now, that would have cost Gunner Kennels $1 million in dies to make out of plastic. It would have been crash tested. It would have had the best of everything, but they just couldn't do it. That's okay. They make portable transportation kennels. This is a permanent fixture in the 4-wheel camper, made custom to fit. Wait till you see it. That's on display, and Alder Grove is going to be over at the W Supply booth. So, and they're going to be showing you their new dog box that's coming out this year. That's basically for all pickup trucks. That, like I said, if you can draw it up, they can build it. K9 Athlete's going to be right down the aisle from us. Purina Pro Plan, well, they run the whole show. The Purina Pro Plan stage where you can get training and questions and advice, and the best of the best trainers, breeders are all there in Purina. You just look over there, it's like Men in Black. They all got black shirts on, and a couple of them have cowboy hats on. You know who they are. Anyway, I don't know. Did I cover everybody? Christ, I hope I did. Onyx, Gunner Kennels, Boss Shot Shells, Garmin, W Supply, Walton's, OF Mossberg & Son, 4-wheel campers, K9 Athlete, Marshwear, Purina Pro Plan, and, I should always mention the Upland Institute. Of course I should mention that. You could get a new puppy any time of the year. Would I want one right now in the middle of winter? No. Would I want one in 2 months? Yes. Would I want to get the Upland Institute now if I'm getting a new dog and get this one started on the right path? That's what I would do. And for pure entertainment, okay, Upland Institute is educational. That's to get you and your dog having a better experience. But for pure entertainment, go to BehindTheDogFilms.com and look at the wonderful, basically, documentary. Okay, it's a documentary. It's all about Bob Ferris, Cedarwood Kennels, and the Poodle Pointer, and where they came from, where they went, where they're going, where they've been, and where I'm not making this up. Well, sometimes I make things up. I think we're up for an Emmy for this one with Matt's editing. Right. I got production. I did not get wind that we were up for an Emmy for production, but in editing, my buddy Matt, my editor Matt Jorio, he's up for an Emmy for this. That is no fooling. No fooling. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you pay attention to it, because don't make me say that such a small percent of people who chase ruffed grouse in this country are members of the Ruffed Grouse Society. Please don't make me go into that whole diatribe. But it's true. If you chase a wild bird in this country, I don't care what wild bird it is, there's a habitat organization that you need to belong to, because they're looking out for your best interest. But honestly, they're looking out for the best interest of the damn planet, and the songbirds, and the worms, and the spiders, and everything just happens to be in that type of habitat. In this case, we're talking with Ben Jones from the American Ruffed Grouse. Yeah, Duh. Well, it's Sunday night, and like I said, I got all the fumes from polyurethane in here. Who knows what's going to come out of my mouth? Ben Jones from RGS AWS. That's Rough Grouse Society, American Woodcock Society. We get into a real good conversation, and it really kind of focuses on the 10-year anniversary of the American Woodcock Society. And this is even going to be up on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. Now, we're going to put up a small section of it because Ben plays that interactive map of the woodcock moving. And this is a map that you probably haven't seen. And if you haven't, you're going to want to see it. So then you want to go to my YouTube channel when Jesse posts that up there. Have I gone long enough? What am I at here? Let me see. That is not the worst. Honest to God, 10 minutes, 16 seconds. That is not the worst I've ever done. I love you guys. I love you girls. I love you girls more. And I love every one of you that show up at Pheasant Fest just a smidgen more.
And even though your friends may stop and stare.
You recognize that voice at all, Ben?
No.
You don't recognize that?
Turn it down.
Well, you know what that's from, don't you?
I probably have a pretty good guess.
Yeah, that's from you sitting at my kitchen table with a can of hams and a guitar.
What could be better?
I don't know. If I would say if you had a can of hams and a guitar right now, we could just do a little concert for the Rough Grouse Society and raise all kinds of money. Let me back up for those. I feel so familiar with Ben. I just started without introducing him. Ben C. Jones is the CEO of the Rough Grouse Society. I'm proud to call him a friend and as well as the Rough Grouse Society, American Woodcock Society. And ever since Ben jumped in there to that position, been through a lot of changes. And from what I'm seeing, all for the good. I mean, you controlled the rains and the snows, and we had a better hatch, right? Everything. How do you guys do all that at Rough Grouse, Ben? And what does the C stand for in Ben C. Jones?
Coulter. My middle name is Coulter.
Oh, that's like a mountain man name.
That was so that would have been my great grandmother's maiden name was Coulter.
Really?
It was my pap's middle name. So, and it's my son's middle name. We actually call him Colt. So we're keeping that going.
My daughter just announced we'll be getting our 6th grandchild this year.
Dang.
And she's going to try to incorporate my mother's maiden name. She tried to do it in their first child, and her maiden name was Donovan. And that's not an impossible first name. I've heard of it a few times.
Sure.
And her last name is Rock, but it's spelled R-A-A-K. And she wanted the last baby to be named Donovan Rock. And I thought, God, that's a strong name, isn't it?
That is real strong. I like
Sounds
it.
like a character out of a John Wayne movie or something.
Heck yeah.
John Wayne is Donovan Rock. And then, boom, they had a daughter, and they decided not to go with Donovan only because of her husband. But I think we might get we might start that Jones tradition of keeping that family name in the family.
Yeah. Well, Cole Jones, my 10.5-year-old, I always feel like there's 2 things that really fits. One, that he absolutely loves is baseball. I just feel like Cole Jones sounds like a baseball player, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And he's a catcher and a little slugger, so I'm just like, it's perfect. That'll work.
Now, you didn't do baseball. You weren't a baseball guy, were you?
Oh my God, I love baseball. Yeah, I played through high school. I love baseball.
Oh, okay. I'm not a sports. I was terrible at sports. I didn't have the hand-eye brain coordination. I was dyslexic, so I couldn't pay attention I'd run to third base instead of first base. It was terrible. It was terrible.
But to bring it around to what I would guess we're going to eventually talk about some hunting stuff. The kid has a great hand-eye, and he shot a turkey last year. This gobbler came in, make this short, but it came in really close And so I had concerns as this is going down that this turkey at 8 yards would present a problem with an extremely full choke. And so Cole shoots this bird and just flattens it. And then afterwards, he talked about it for days. A couple days later, he said, "Dad, you know how their head is moving front to back and up and down all at the same time?" I said, "Yeah, I know what you mean." He said, "I put it where his head was going to be when I squeezed." I said, "Son, this is why you can hit curveballs also."
Yeah, I was going to say, that takes a little thinking for that age of kid.
Yeah, this is also why you probably will do okay as a wing shooter when we get to that point.
Yeah. He hasn't, he's not big enough to swing a shotgun yet, huh? Like
He's getting there. We're thinking about this summer of how to get him trained up on a clays course, and just whether it's rolling targets down the road. And I'm happy to hear any stories and input and advice on how to get a young kid like that started. And my girls are ready to start the same, so we'll have a whole family affair here.
Well, I'm not much. I started them on BB guns and just kind of probably threw them in a little too soon, but they two out of three stuck with it. I think the sore shoulder on the youngest one maybe turned her off from it. That's hard to say. So,
Yep.
I'd say go light gauge, but I think everybody knows that.
Yeah, we've got all that covered. And the squirrels, he was out with his 22 last week, but we're gonna figure out how to break into the flying targets.
There you go. Speaking of flying targets, those would be grouse and woodcock, right?
They fly.
Give us a little any new updates? What's coming up for RGS and AWS?
Updates for RGS and AWS. We'll go back real quick because we had some real milestones in 2023. One of the things that we did was signed our largest ever funded habitat agreement with the U.S. Forest Service. And of course, the Forest Service, you're in Michigan, across Grouse Range, national forests are really important public lands for hunting. So it's a big focus of our business plan to get forest management done in those places. So this is a big agreement funded to the tune of $2 million in Region 9 of the Forest Service, which is kind of everything Minnesota, sweeping around West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and then north is Region 9, the eastern region of the Forest Service.
Gotcha.
So we got a $2 million investment there to do on-the-ground habitat work. But the really cool thing about it is that all of that habitat work that we'll be doing is also teeing up future timber sales and more habitat work. So it's like a capital investment in our program with the Forest Service. So that was really exciting for us. And we worked a while on that, building relationships and trust with the Forest Service. So there'll be good things that come out of that.
Wasn't that a bit of a nut to crack too, historically? Wasn't it almost easier, or maybe it's just Wisconsin I'm thinking of, where the state forest agencies were easier to work with and the federal wasn't? So is that a true statement?
It just depends. So for us, we have to be really flexible. I mean, you have different state agency structures in every state, and even within the United States Forest Service, locally, you have differences in the way those national forests approach things. So we have to be really kind of nimble and adaptable depending on what's going on in each of those states. And working with a huge federal agency has its challenges for sure. It can be tough. Here it said like steering a battleship at times. It's tough to get anything moving real quick in such a huge organization.
Yeah.
So it was really important for us. The approach that we took was building with our forest conservation directors, building those local relationships.
Yeah.
Forest by forest, and then working with the region office and the Washington office to get funding for projects that everybody was into. So it took a lot of that kind of bottom-up groundwork to get it rolling. And the Forest Service is a fantastic partner.
Now, prior to your beginning at RGS, which is now, I'm thinking, going on, 6 years, maybe 5, 6
It'll be
years?
six in June.
Okay. Was that a nut that wasn't cracked or wasn't cracked enough? What did that look like before you got in there?
Yeah, there were things going on with the Forest Service, and always this. When I came in, here's what I was getting bombarded with. How are you going to get the Forest Service to cut more? Or we need to get the Forest Service to cut more. Or we've been trying to get the Forest Service to
Right.
cut more and not able to do it. So that was a clear priority for our members. And nationally, it's 193 million acres. That's you got to figure that one out. So
Yeah, and we're talking, yeah, that's a lot of acres. That's a
yeah,
lot.
it's a lot of acres. It's a lot of different people, and there are a lot of stakeholders. There's a lot of input that comes with management on our national forests, and there's there are a lot of voices and have been that are opposed to forest management on those federal land bases. So this is what we have to work through, and we were talking about my PAP that I got the middle name off of a little bit ago. You're part of the solution or part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so we really have been trying to figure out how to be part of the solution, recognizing there are always going to be challenges. How do we be part of fixing them?
Yeah.
And so the approach that makes the most sense, and this has been true for me in conservation for 2.5 decades, is build it from the bottom up. It's all run just like anything else. It's about relationships.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
get our forest conservation directors on board, get them in those national forest offices, build trust, build rapport, do a couple little things, have success, take it to the next step. It's, hey, back to baseball. This is small ball, and this is being able to bunt, steal bases, get base hits. Not everything's not a grand slam. Those
Right.
come, but they get built up by that small ball.
So, Ben, are your Forest Service managers it almost makes it sound like they're a door-to-door salesman, right? They're kind of going in there and saying, "Hi, you remember us? We did that little logging project." And so they do that on a local level, but how does it end up, without going too long into detail?
Yeah.
Where does Washington, D.C. come into it? It's not voted on by our politicians, is it? It's how does that play out roughly?
Yeah. So, and you mentioned door-to-door salesmen. This is why it's really important for our staff, our forest conservation directors. Um, they're committed, they're passionate, they bring it with them. You're not going to get anywhere if you knock on the door and you're a jerk, right? or you start doing this. What you need to do is, no, we're here. We want to help with this. How can we be part of getting this work done? It's something we want, our members want. It's something that's in your plans. How can we help? So you're right on kind of on that approach. You got to build relationships. So we get everything teed up at the local level, and then it becomes much easier for me in conversations in Washington, D.C. to say, and here's where the politicians set this up. We have a lot of funding in place right now through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act that can be used for habitat management.
Nice.
So knowing that funding is there now in the relationships locally, I can go to the Washington office and say, you know what, your field staff really want this. We've got people in place to be able to do this. All you need to do from here is commit the funding. As opposed to if the Washington office says, here this money, and then they start hearing from the field staff that are saying RGS and AWS is a bunch of jerks. We don't want to work with them. We got no projects. Instead, we got the projects, the relationship. Washington office holds the money, and it just kind of comes together in the middle.
That's it wasn't like, well, I'm not saying it wasn't by design, but that took some implementation to do. Is the machine working now? Is this just going to be able to keep going like a slow snowball? Like, again, not in a hurry, but it sounds like brighter days ahead for forestry.
Yeah, so we overcame a lot of obstacles to get over, kind of this inertia, and now that flywheel's moving. So the most exciting part for me is there isn't any going backward at this point. The only question is, how steep that trajectory of continuing to grow is. And what we're seeing right now is it could grow really fast. And we'll end up talking a bit today about some things we're looking to get rolling and have been in the woodcock wintering range. So outside of the range of ruffed grouse and talking specifically about woodcock and teeing up the American Woodcock Society. So we'll get there. But to answer your question right now, it's not going to go backwards. We've overcome the inertia. The ball's rolling. And there's a lot more ahead.
That's pretty cool. I thought of something. Now, eventually, I'm going to let RGS have this logo, but I'm going to make a new organization called MALA, M-A-L-A.
All right.
Make America Log Again. What do you think?
You know, it feels like at times that we're paddling upstream on public sentiment about logging and forest management. You and I don't know if we've had a conversation where we didn't talk about this, but it's really easy for anti-logging groups to say trees are important to life on the planet and to wildlife. Why would you cut a tree?
Right.
That took all of 7.5 seconds maybe for me to say.
Right.
But what we've got to talk about is how cutting trees results in rejuvenated habitat, and those trees are growing rapidly and creating cover for wildlife that need them. Already I'm at 14 seconds and I lost half the audience. So our challenge is much greater as pro forest management advocates.
God, it's easy to be anti anything, isn't it?
I guess so. That's a good point. But if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So here we go.
No, you're right. And we always do talk about logging, but I find it, fascinating and frustrating as someone who lives for going on 40 years in Michigan, watching the woods around my house not change for the better. And always, I go down this one road all the time. It's in the Manistee. And it's almost starting to look like an old forest preserve district in Chicago, where only the biggest trees live and there's nothing on the ground. And it looks like that in the summertime now, and it I don't say it breaks my heart, but I'm like, boy, if they were managing this thing when I moved here, I could take a bicycle and go grouse hunting, and I know those trees just keep getting bigger and, great for squirrels, I guess, but I mean, it's not.
We've got great membership in Michigan, and in my first couple of years, I was hearing a lot specifically about the Huron Manistee and the potential there to manage, but the lack of management that was going on. So I'm going to say it was maybe 18 months ago, and we're involved with this. The Forest Service released the final decision on the Zone Aspen project, which is about 30,000 acres of aspen management on the Huron Manistee.
That's nice.
So that's a lot of cutting every year. We're going to be involved with that. Our team is helping add foresters and capacity to make sure the Forest Service meets the goals. Our members spoke up during the scoping, during the public comment periods of the Zone Aspen project. So the Forest Service felt supported by us, our members, the public. And so the project's going through, and there's going to be 30,000 acres cut. So that's a big deal.
AWS, you said we were going to get into that. Before we go down an old rabbit hole, let's go down that rabbit hole. It's an anniversary coming up here, and what's happening?
Yes. So most people listening here are going to know that grouse and woodcock, I mean, it's almost synonymous. It almost just rolls off your tongue. What are you hunting for? Grouse and woodcock. How'd you do? Grouse, woodcock numbers. So across a lot of the country, grouse and woodcock are right there, kind of hand in hand, and we love them both. There's also this other part with American woodcock being migratory, this whole area that's really important for them, where they spend a whole bunch of time where there aren't any ruffed grouse.
Right.
Places like the Gulf Coast, the Atlantic coastal plain, the Piedmont and coastal plain of the Carolinas, Eastern Virginia. No grouse there. Haven't been any grouse there, but it's really important places for woodcock. So this was the idea in 2014 when the American Woodcock Society was stood up, not as a standalone, but its own potential individual entity within RGS and AWS so that we could work on these landscapes where
Right.
nobody's talking about rough grouse. There's not opportunity. It's all timber doodles. So that's why it was stood up 10 years ago. And now what we're seeing, like we were just talking about, when you keep filling the pipeline with projects and that flywheel starts turning, it's pretty cool that in this 10th anniversary of the founding of AWS, it's going to benefit from those gears turning, and we're going to be able to start moving big time with some Woodcock stuff in AWS geographies.
And on the landscape, how much different does that look, Ben? I mean, we keep, like you said, in every episode, we talk about logging the North Woods, right? And habitat improvement. And I know an area in the panhandle of Florida that gets woodcock. In fact, it's real close. I mean, it's about as far out as you can go in the panhandle of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But the cover I saw there, and the guy told me there's woodcock in there. It doesn't look like a forest, and it doesn't look like the forest that I see woodcock in here, right?
Yeah.
So what does that management look like? I mean, is it a burn more than a cut, or is it what's that like in that kind of territory?
All right. So the first thing, and this is key, RGS and AWS, this is like core stuff right here for the answer to that question, that we always base the work that we're doing based on what we know from science.
Yeah.
And the science behind woodcock habitat use in their wintering grounds and on migration stopovers is kind of one of the last frontiers, certainly for game birds. So for the past, what's it been, 6 or 7 years or so, we were helping with the Eastern Migration Study through University of Maine, where all up and down the Eastern Flyway, state agencies, partners, we were helping out to put GPS transmitters on woodcock so we could figure out what they were using. How far were they flying? Where were they stopping over? What are they using?
Yeah.
So we've learned a lot from that. And what we've learned now is what we're going to apply on the ground. So we're getting some looks at, well, what are they using down there? There's no aspen.
No.
We know they like young aspen cup. What does that mean in the Ace Basin of South Carolina?
Right.
But the funny thing about it, Ron, I was down there 2 weeks ago. You're still looking for that same structure. It's got to be thick. It's usually going to be hardwood stems, really dense. So having spent some time down there the last 2 years, things like cane thickets. I was down there, like I said, a couple weeks ago, and they were in a planted pine plantation where the pine was really thin, but there was a lot of hardwoods coming in there. Looked like it looked like a dog hair thick, young, regenerating clear cut.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, that's where the birds were.
That tracking, I was looking it up before you jumped on here, and I will say I did not do a lot of grouse and woodcock hunting this year. Did a lot of other stuff, but I love that site now. I mean, it literally walks you through the year, and it literally talks about individual birds and where they moved, and like bird number so and so just took off from Minnesota and ended up with 1,000-meter or 1,000-kilometer flight. It's amazing. I mean, and it sounds like, is that ramping up? Because it seems like you're tagging birds all the time. I was reading this page, and is that something that is on an increase as well? I don't know how Ducks Unlimited does it with banding, but when you guys put a transmitter on a bird, do you also band it?
Yeah, they're getting banded too. So with these transmitters, I mean, they're several $1,000s a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So this was never intended to be like a long-term, we're going to be tagging birds every year. It was, let's do this for a number of years, collect the information about how far are they flying, what's important. And for us, the most important things think of them as hot spots that are really important for stopover habitat or for overwintering habitat, especially with that stopover thing. This is where the world of woodcock gets real different than grouse. I mean, if these little buggers are going to fly 1,000 kilometers, they better have a really nice spot to stop and refuel where they're protected, they can rest.
Right.
And those can be pretty small patches of habitat. I mean, we're talking 5-10 acres can mean a lot to a bunch of migrating woodcock. So where we have to think of ruffed grouse management about young forest, old forest mixed in over thousands, tens of thousands of acres.
Right.
We can have some postage stamp stuff that can be really important for woodcock during migration.
Yeah, I can picture that, but I've never seen it. You know what I mean? I can't picture that creek bottom in, let's just say, southern Indiana that's literally loaded up like what we would dream of as flight birds, right? And I mean, I know we can't ask a woodcock a question, but I could ask a question that sounds like that. Do we believe, or does science believe, that those places are as habitual as they're, like when the female comes back? I was on a couple banding days, and the females a lot of times will literally come back within a 10-yard circle of where they laid their nest or built their nest. With these transmitters now, are they finding birds using the same stopover spot, or is that like a shit, the weather's coming, we got to find stem density, or are they, is that patternable?
Yeah, I think like everything else, it's some of both.
Okay.
Especially on migrations, depending on where you end up, what date the weather clicked, what date you were able to fly off of the southern coast of Cape May, New Jersey, and get down the coast. So there'll be some differences there, but I think you can expect to see some of those same tendencies too. For us, it's these bigger patterns of places that year in and year out, regardless of individual birds, new birds coming in and out, that year in and year out over decades are really important for stopover.
Yeah.
Those are the places where you're really going to want to concentrate your effort. That's where your bang for your buck is.
Right. But those stopover places, as opposed to the end destination, I got a picture. There's probably so many of them, and people have no idea that it's in. Let's say they have a 100-acre farm. They might have one of the best little stopover spots for woodcock, and they wouldn't even know it if they didn't get out there. And they may be there for a day or two, right?
Yeah.
And go. Yeah. That kind of keeps it like a mystery. It's that mystery of the woodcock. It's crazy.
Totally is. And so when I was in South Carolina and having these discussions, I would get introduced to some Ben Jones, works for American Woodcock Society. Oh, woodcock. We see those sometimes when we're on our way into the duck blind. Or one time, it was February and one was singing in the back corner of my field. But still, their interest is piqued, but it still really is mysterious. So telling more of this story, being able to say, well, you know what? Actually, about 30% of woodcock in the entire eastern flyway will either stop over or winter in the coastal plain and Piedmont of the Carolinas. And it's a really important landscape for the species. Then you're kind of hooked. You can see them go, really? So our farm is important for stopover habitat? Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are so many things about woodcock that you can get that hook. I mean, just look at the thing. It's just wild. Anybody that's not intrigued just looking at that thing.
Right.
What? And it migrates?
Right.
What?
And it's upland, and we can use lead on it.
It's upland. I killed a female woodcock this past year, first week in November, at the highest, boniest elevation on top of a mountain that you could possibly get to.
You did this year?
Yeah.
I was up outside of I was up in George Washington one time grouse hunting, and I'm sure this has happened a million times in the history of woodcock on North America. My dog was on point, and he wasn't that good of a grouse dog. He was okay, but he was no grouse expert. And he's holding the point, and me and Chip are trying to get there. And I'm like, I can't believe it. My dog's finally figured it out. And on top of this mountain, it was a woodcock come out of there. I'm like, what the heck is that thing doing there? but there's little wet spots up there on tops, and I would have thought, if you think of where my place is in the valley, that they would stay to the valley along the Shenandoah rivers and in the north and south branch. And here, this one's migrating down literally the ridge
Yeah.
of the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
So there had to be other ones. He couldn't have been. I doubt if his navigation system was broken, but
Yeah.
that one sticks in my head. Like, those days in the field where if you were an artist, you could draw the picture. I could draw the picture of the shrubbery out of the brush it came out of. My dog on point, which was not typical for a grouse, and this woodcock just lifting up, and I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a bird that it does make you. I'm not saying I don't shoot at him anymore, and I'm not saying I've only shot at pointed woodcock, because that's what most of them are anyway, unless they're running. But I have less of a desire to hunt them. I have a bigger desire to hunt them and just see them as opposed to shoot them, because I don't feel like they're handicapped. I just feel like, God, it's almost like a dinosaur that's still around, because it's such a goofy bird.
Yeah.
Now, when you were studying, I know we've covered this before, you spent wasn't your doctoral thesis basically living with the grouse in the mountains?
It was, yeah. That was in Western North Carolina in the Nantahala National Forest. Yep.
Did woodcock come into that study back in the day, or was that were you not seeing them there?
Well, we weren't studying woodcock specifically, but I saw woodcock in that country. And at that time, I had a setter, and I did a lot of hunting too. And there were definitely woodcock used in that country.
Okay.
And so if you're thinking about migration and finding birds on ridgetops, and it seems like every year I do, it makes sense. When you think about migratory birds overall, and like just down the road from me here in South Central Pennsylvania, you've got Hawk Mountain and other hawk observatories where those thermals are coming through just right. You can go there and count hundreds of migrating hawks and other birds on any given day. So woodcock are doing that kind of same thing of following the ridge lines in some regard. Yeah. And then probably some of them, probably more of them than not, are stopping and spending their days in those really good foraging habitats where there's moist soil. But some of them are stopping on the ridgetop too. And, we can't anthropomorphize this too much. Doesn't mean there isn't anything for them to eat up there. You flip over a log on top of a mountain, there's earthworms and stuff under there.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of bugs. They don't just eat. They don't eat just bluegill bait. Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
But this is the next step for us on the Eastern Migration Study. When those GPS transmitters are on, they're collecting tons of information every day.
Yeah.
Man, nostalgia, the old guy here. We had to be out by hand with that damned antenna for every location. This thing, I could sit right here, and in the time we've been talking, it collected 10 locations.
Right.
So what we've got now is, even though we've slowed down on tagging birds, we've got a ton of data to take that next look at. Like, what are the are there patterns in preferred habitat during migration and stopover? Mm-hmm. Are there those hot spots? So I was talking with Eric Blomberg just over the past month up at UMaine. He's been heading the thing about how we can get some students looking at that next step of data analysis, and how we can educate what we're going to prioritize with AWS work on the coastal plain in Piedmont of the Carolinas and along the Gulf Coast.
And that, of course, will be habitat work, right? Because
I
said that.
What do you think?
Well, I said that because my mouth doesn't work in conjunction with my brain. But when I was talking about the woods overgrown themselves here, when you think of that low country, swampy cane breaks, does that habitat, it doesn't grow like the oak trees, right? Or isn't it like, it seems to me, being a northerner, that habitat's more consistent? Or is that just because I don't know anything about southern habitat?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. We've got to kind of come up with some new best management practices, these BMPs, for how to make sure there's good woodcock habitat on that wintering range.
Right.
Before we talked this morning, I was working on just formalizing an agreement that we're going to have with Quail Forever, because they, of course, are really interested in quail habitat in that same landscape.
Right.
There's a ton of overlap between what quail need and what woodcock need,
Right.
especially if you read kind of the typical quail management. Part of what they need is these kind of shrubby, brushy, woody areas for daytime loafing areas between feeding
Yeah.
and nesting. Those are going to be the same areas that are going to be great for woodcock. So
Yeah.
for us, and with our Forest Service partners, back to the original conversation, by us partnering with Quail Forever, then we come to the Forest Service with kind of a combined message. Instead of, and imagine you're at the Forest Service, you got the quail people coming, you got the deer people coming, now the woodcock people are coming.
Right.
You know, I give up. So
Right.
if we all come with a unified message of, you know, this is how we're going to manage for quail, whitetails, turkeys, woodcock all together, then you're going to be more successful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going to work on what those BMPs are. How do you manage cane break on a coastal plain river bottom?
I have no idea.
That's new territory.
Right. It's not a chainsaw.
Maybe in part it is. So
Yeah.
these are the things we've got to figure out next. These are next steps.
Wow. So you want to touch on seaweed, or do we got some more AWS stuff?
Whatever you want. It would be on topic that we'll be at the Southeastern Wildlife Expo. It's February. The middle of this
February. February 15, 16, 17, like that, right?
month. That's correct. In Charleston, South Carolina. Big show.
I've always wanted to go to that. Where, not where on the, what kind of presence are you guys going to have there? Are you going to have, I mean, is there going to be some talks? Is it going to be a booth? Are you just dipping your toe in it? It's first time, right, for you guys?
It is. It's our first time with an official booth there, so we're excited about that. We're in the same neighborhood as all the other conservation groups, which is a good thing.
Right.
We do have an event downtown on Friday night, kind of a cocktail hour meet and greet thing there at 6 p.m. And I don't have all the details right here on that, but we'll be putting it up on our website, I'm sure. So yeah, we're going to be all over the place, but a lot of the work is going to be at that booth. We'll be talking a lot about the wonders of the timber doodle, especially at our booth at Seawee, because you're right in the heart of that country. And the interesting thing about Seawee is it's an event that draws a bunch of conservationists who are really into and really supportive of conservation. If you think of the presence Ducks Unlimited has had there for decades,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can get people fired up at Seawee.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's a different crowd than Pheasant Fest, but it is a different crowd than Pheasant Fest.
Yeah, it's a different event, which is cool.
And because, like I said, it also brings in a lot of that urban, because it is a huge art show and there's a lot of wildlife art. Yeah, I could see where, I might be exaggerating. A future benefactor might come by your booth who's from the Carolinas and thinks this is just the best idea ever. I can't believe I haven't heard of this before. And you might get a plethora of places to work and benefactors. We need benefactors, still need benefactors.
Yeah. Well, Seawee is a great place to meet those kind of supporters. It really is. So we're all in. We're excited about it. We'll have a bunch of staff there, and I'll be there the full duration. I'll be there Wednesday. The kickoff is Wednesday night. It closes down Sunday, so I'll be leaving Monday morning. I'm in for the long haul on that one.
Well, I might be there next year, but I got to see what the Turkey Federation thing looks like. I've been.
Oh yeah.
I've heard about Seawee. I stayed down at Bray's Plantation with a couple people 2 years ago, and all their wives were heading down to Seawee, and he said, "Yeah, we ought to go. Bring your wife next time." It's an unbelievable. I heard of it and I've looked at it online. I was like, "Yeah, that looks like that looks like a place I got to check out. And I could even bring my wife to. There was a lot of artwork, so
Yep.
I think I could talk her into that.
So is the Turkey Federation event in Nashville the same weekend or close?
No, same weekend. Same weekend.
So have you been to that before?
No, that's the first time for me for this one.
Oh, hang on to your hat. That is a cool show.
Well, it's funny. Not that I have been dragged into photography celebrity a couple times by a photographer up here. He works for a lot of different companies.
Mm-hmm.
For example, he used 5 pictures of parts of me for Cubby Rise magazine a couple years ago. Now you would never know it's me. It's my sweater, my dog, or my hand on a leash, And he called me in to do something. I think it was for Benelli. And me and another guy had to sit at a table with a glass of bourbon. And I don't drink bourbon, but I did that night. And we got to smoke a cigar indoors because they wanted a cigar look, right? And I just heard him talking about it, and he goes like, "You've never been there?" To what you're saying, he goes, "Oh my God, I'm there. I'm doing photo shoots for 5 different companies there. You got to come down." And I'm like, "Well, I just thought it was turkeys, and it's not my favorite bird. I'm not against turkeys. It doesn't do anything for me." And he goes, "Oh my God, no." He says, There's waterfowl. There's Purina's got a dog stage there. Then it turns out a guy that I interviewed is going to be there doing demonstrations with his dog. I'm like, oh, so no, this is my first. I'm gonna experience it. I'm just gonna walk it and see if it's maybe a fit for the podcast or Upland Institute or whatever.
Yeah.
And hopefully the weekends don't overlap again or don't line up where I can do both next year.
Yeah. Take comfy shoes. It's big. A lot of walking.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it. I can same thing with seaweed though. It's like there's no way I can do both, but that time of year I'd much rather be down there than at some northern unfortunately you never get warm weather or at least nice weather when Pheasants Forever comes around. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, things should be fairly pleasant in February in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have you there for sure.
All right, next year I'll commit to going.
Nice. Good deal.
So, hunting season. How was hunting season?
It was great. I can never believe it blows by, and I've got the stuff still sitting around in my office here. I'm reluctant to put it away. Get real depressed. Put all your hunting stuff away. But I did get that. Got to extend down there for a little bit of woodcock hunting in South Carolina. But it was really good. We were out for the national hunt, and I spent a few extra days in northern Minnesota for that. And the grouse numbers were off the charts. They were fantastic.
That's what I heard. I've
really
never been
great.
to Minnesota yet, and I heard that this year. I've heard it a lot of years, but I didn't find that in Michigan. Now again, I didn't go anywhere. Well, I went to one place new, and it wasn't. I didn't come out of. I haven't heard anybody in Michigan saying it was a banner year. Good here and there, but yeah, Minnesota. It sounded like I really missed out on that one.
Yeah, same thing. I was, kind of mixed reports. Generally good in Michigan. It's kind of the same thing for Wisconsin, but yeah, really fantastic. And when you're with somebody that lives there and is an avid grouse hunter, and they're saying this is the best we've seen in 25 years,
yeah,
that's pretty legit. But it always blows my doors off going to Minnesota. On the worst years, awesome most of the time. But when you're having 50 or 60 grouse days, that's just nuts. And then throw it in. We hit some woodcock days too, where it was the same, like 50, 60 grouse. Same with woodcock.
That would make you walk all day. You wouldn't stop walking. You couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's easy to quit walking when you haven't seen a bird for an hour, right? But seeing that kind of birds, my God, even with my knee, I could keep moving.
Yeah. Dogs are bleeding. They're fired up though. You know, they're not getting bored. They're not. You know, they're on task. When you're finding that many birds that frequently, your dogs just dial in.
What now you probably didn't get to travel with your dog to either South Carolina or the national, or did you?
No, I did. I did for both.
Oh, did you?
Yep.
Because I know a year ago we talked, and you kind of basically you were thrown as a substitute guide, weren't you, with your dog last year? Kind of like
A couple years ago, she was only one, so I was nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's about to turn 4 now.
Wow.
So I traveled with her. Old dog stays here, but traveled with her out to Minnesota, and she did incredibly well. I just enjoyed traveling with her. We got you know how it is. We got our travel routine down.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. So it was no big deal to throw her in and take her on the trip to South Carolina. And an interesting thing, I'm so glad we had her there. They weren't real sure about woodcock presence on this property where I was staying, which is about 10,000 acres. They're real interested, you know, keyed up about the idea of it, but lacked that one step further of, are there birds here on this property?
Right.
So the Sunday before I left, we put my dog down and found some what looked like good cover here again. Like, I don't know, seems like it should be good.
Right.
And got in there, and she started knocking down woodcock points. And one of the guys we were with actually killed one. So it took that excitement level from, they're really neat birds, interesting, to, we got them here. This is awesome. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we owe Phoebe a few more biscuits for Conservation Dog of the Year.
Oh, that's nice. God. I think I told you last week when we talked for a minute, a friend of mine in Virginia, he has a camp, and I never targeted woodcock in Virginia. I know people that do on the Eastern Shore along the military bases and stuff, but this was down in Danville, which is basically right down 29 out of, Roanoke or not Roanoke, out of Blacksburg and all the way down to Danville. And they have a woodcock camp there every year. Sometimes they do good, sometimes they don't. But this year they did really good, and a few quail. Going back to what you said, those stopover woodcock were in. I would say, if there was more quail, you'd call it quail country. There just wasn't a lot of quail, which that's a whole nother conservation department. But that's where they were finding those stopover woodcock, and where they typically will find a handful of quail and a handful of woodcock. This year, it was much more than a handful.
Yeah. Well, and again, the same thing we talked about with ruffed grouse and what you need for a landscape to be able to have populations that keep rolling because they're non-migratory. The same is true of quail. You've got to be thinking about thousands, tens of thousands of acres.
Right.
But when woodcock drop in and fall out of the sky, you might make a day of it. And I've done this before on about 14 acres.
Right.
Yeah. So, all your listeners and all of our members right now down in that country are like, shut up.
Yeah. Shut up.
No more.
No more on Minnesota. No more on the South. There are no woodcock. The woodcock bounce over, and they all stay down at the Louisiana-Texas border. Everybody knows that.
Yep. The cat's been out of the bag for a while on Minnesota. There's no hiding that. But the woodcock opportunities in the Piedmont and coastal plain, I think, are still a pretty well-kept secret.
At least the where. We don't have the where. We just know the state. Yeah.
And then it's the fun thing about it. It's such a different deal because you can go around to these pieces of state property, and you're just kind of looking for these little pocket covers. So it's super fun if you have, a dog that'll work with you on this, a dog that'll stay close and hunt small covers with you, but just, jump out, throw them in there, let them make a couple casts, move on to the next one. It's kind of like hopscotching around, which is a really fun part of it.
Well, what you said that made me smile while you were saying it, like you're down there on this 10,000 acre piece, and you said, well, let's see if there's woodcock here. And you kind of were like, well, I don't know, let's go check it out. and my thought was like, I would have asked the landowner, where do you have cover so thick that I can't swing my shotgun barrel? Right? Because in the end, that's still what you're looking for. It's gonna be a little nasty. You're gonna get poked a lot.
That's exactly the discussion we had before we went out and where we started. That was exactly how I laid it up. The worst regenerating, high stem density. Where do you often find the swamp rabbit hunt there too?
Yeah, that's true.
So essentially, like good cottontail habitat. That's where they're going to be.
Is there any other species that, I don't want to say do what the woodcock do, but songbirds migrate, and they always talk about the warbler up here in the woods. Do the warblers go? I mean, it's just a round question. Are there other birds that migrate down, songbirds that still they're looking for the same nesting habitat as a woodcock up north? Are they looking for the same winter cover? Is there anything that's synonymous with it?
Yeah, and so just like we talk about with grouse and woodcock being bellwethers,
right?
Woodcock aren't the only species that ends up in mass during the winter in the coastal plain of South Carolina.
Yeah,
there's a lot of birds doing the same thing. You just reminded me saying that. Can't remember who I was talking to this past year, but they really, when they start seeing a bunch of robins, how in the fall you'll all of a sudden look out and there's 50 robins in your yard.
Yep.
They get the dog with all due haste because that means the woodcock are there. That makes total sense, of course.
Right. We think of one bird migrating, but everything here that isn't we do get a few mourning doves that stick around because we got bird feeders, but every other bird I see in the woods while I'm grouse hunting, they got to get the heck out of Dodge too. Right.
Yeah.
So that overlay of habitat you've talked about working with Audubon Society. I mean, that's got to have a play into it, right? That the birds in general, not woodcock, just birds in general need that habitat.
To your point exactly, Ron, when I was down there on this last trip, I met and spent some time with the conservation director for Audubon, South Carolina.
Oh.
Yeah. Imagine. So you're spot on.
Well, and I didn't even get that one teed up to me. I'm proud of myself on that one. I don't know where to go now.
Good work, man. You're down, and you and I have been talking enough that that these things come back around, and it's about making those connections. And it's gonna be true across the board. That idea applies that what's good for grouse and woodcock is going to be good for a lot of other species. That's why it's really important to us not to generate confusion, like with partners at the Forest Service over species A versus B versus C. And this idea there's winners and losers. It's all kind of a continuum. Yeah. If we go in there with NDA and NWTF and Quail Forever and AWS and say they're a whole, and Audubon, say they're a whole bunch of wildlife that are going to benefit from this, then we're better off. That's our approach everywhere. Same in Minnesota, same in New Hampshire, South Carolina, wherever. Yeah,
and it's got to help almost in a little bit. When you hear the word Audubon, I don't know that anybody thinks of hunting when they hear of Audubon, although we know Audubon was a hunter. But you do think of people who just do like the winter bird count, their bird, their hobby is just bird viewing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And getting Audubon on your side, it almost, I don't want to say legitimizes hunting, but it can reach a whole nother batch of people. They're like, wow, that they kind of look away from, they're just looking at their favorite bird species. And we have to slide in with them. Yeah.
No doubt. And woodcock really lend themselves to this visibility. And right down the road from where I'm sitting right now, we've been working on a project on a state park. It's not a huge state park, but we pique the park's interest mostly from the wildlife viewing opportunity, especially in March, coming out of winter when those birds are there sky dancing. You can do woodcock walks in the evening. And for a state park, that interpretive piece is really important for
Oh,
them.
yeah.
And Woodcock bring it in spades, man. So it's
Oh,
perfect.
yeah.
fit.
That's like how many birds put on the show like that you could almost count on, right?
Yeah, and you don't have to be real stealthy. You know, as long as you got a decent skylight, they're gonna do their thing.
They do their thing. Yeah. That is cool. What else, banquet wise, anything new on her? I mean, I know not a model, but a lot of birds and brew nights. Is that something that's ramping up, holding its own, or I know we're a couple years out of the cursed pandemic, but how
Yeah.
about banquets and birds and brew stuff? Is everything solid there?
This is that time of year, February, March, April, into the beginning of May, especially on the dinner and banquet end where there's a lot going on. So, yep, that's ramping up. And, you know, there is continued interest in kind of the dinner model, the banquet
Right,
model.
right.
But also acknowledging we've got to figure out what that next thing is to keep people interested. But
Right.
we've also got to raise some funds at those events. So, you know, where's that mix in your engagement and events portfolio between events and dinners and shoots and just going out and having a couple beers? You know, that real strong engagement piece combined in with the ability to make some money to fund our mission too. If any of your listeners have the silver bullet for that, then man,
You'd be
love
glad
to hear
to.
it. But it is about asking a lot of opinions because there's not any silver bullet. It's going to be a lot of things. We've just
Right.
got to be willing to try different things and adapt.
Well, we talked about it before, that BHA model, you know, what they did without the banquet model and did the membership. So I think those brew nights, yeah, a brew night's not gonna generate a lot of money,
Mhm.
but it can generate the interest in being a eventual banquet attender and or whatever else. So I think those are I don't want to say critical, but I like the way that went. You know, I like that move.
Yeah, and it's everything. So it's that piece that's generating memberships.
Interest.
We still get a lot of people enjoy the camaraderie of a dinner or the
Yeah.
banquet. So
Oh, yeah.
that's an important part. But here's where something like Seaweed enters in too, and this being our first year there that you mentioned, you know, the potential major supporters that could wander by your booth.
Right.
So we've got to diversify our operational funding. And when I came in 2018, we were really banquet focused.
Right.
And you and I talked about this. If ever there was something to make you quit cold turkey, it was COVID because they were gone. That was it.
Yeah. We weren't allowed
So,
to. Yeah.
So it's like, here's your sign. You better diversify funding revenue and not be too focused on one thing, which is just good business. So we're going to places like Seaweed. We've got people like Glenn Blackwood and Chad Bloom and Trip Way working on the major gift side with individuals and foundations. So yeah, it's diversifying all that revenue out. Yeah. And they tie together too, Ron, because who knows who's going to come into your Birds and Brew and sit down and have a pint with you.
Right.
They could ultimately end up being a huge conservation supporter if they're philanthropic. So
Right. Yeah.
it's not, you can't be siloed in the whole thing either.
Right. Right. It's not just an old guys club anymore.
Man, we've got to be all over all at once.
Right. You gotta have a kindergarten chapter. You gotta have a grade school chapter, high school, college. You know.
And for whatever reason, it's like you just get run ragged this time of year. You already mentioned the schedule conflicts.
Right.
Every trade show, rendezvous, event. I mean, I'm all over between Seaweed. We have a thing in New York City. The North American Wildlife Conference is up your way in Grand Rapids, Michigan in March. BHA's having their rendezvous in Minneapolis. Between now and mid-April, I could be on the road nonstop.
Right. Right.
Pheasant and Quail Classic coming up.
Yeah. Which I won't see you at, I heard, right? You're not going to make it to that one.
Yep, I had to shift the schedule around to try to fit as much in as I could.
I'll forgive you this week. I'll forgive.
Well, we're gonna have great representation there. Katie McCaleb's going to be there. She's our new VP of Communications and Marketing. We've got a new engagement coordinator that's running our chapters coming on. You'd be able to meet him at our booth.
Nice.
So we're going to have a strong presence. Just I won't be there.
Well, maybe I can get them. I did this last year because Sunday mornings are really slow, and the show doesn't open till 9 or 10. I forget, and I think 9 o'clock. Last year, I had a couple of guests come in about 8 o'clock. We just met early, and maybe I can get Katie and who's the other person?
Katie, Jeremy will be our new engagement coordinator coming there. I think he comes on. Man, he might start Monday.
Okay.
This coming week. So brand new staff person there. Chad Bloom will be there. He's handling a lot of our major gift stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll have volunteers. Other people from our comms team will be there. Yeah, hunt them down. Find Katie, and she'll stir them up for you.
Yeah, we actually have a little. We're going to do a catch-up meeting this week. I think Tuesday. She sent me her calendar.
Oh, there you go.
Because I did some stuff with her back at BHA. So really, really good to see you got. I don't think you could find a better person to work with RGS for this.
No, we're thrilled. It was something big for me last year, is going to that next level with our communications and marketing. And this is the first vice president on my staff since I started here. So, I mean, it says a lot, I think, for our direction. And that first VP is in communications and marketing. In this business, it means so much. And to be able to, over last year, to have had those discussions with Katie, as she was looking at what we're doing and took an interest in our conservation model and what we had going on. I mean, it was a real honor. And man, to have her here with her experience, having come from TRCP and BHA, man, great fit. We're thrilled to have Katie here.
I'm gonna guess that she has Habitat tattooed on her arm, probably.
It's a requisite when you get here. You got to be branded.
Look at this. Look at what I wore today. See that?
That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
I dug that out the other day. I said I better put that on, and I want Ben to know I'm wearing the colors of the Grouse and Woodcock.
Looking good. Looking good.
Anything else, Ben? Are we anything else new or anything, or I mean that you could talk about or that you're excited about?
Yeah, all those things. I mean, it's just the flywheel is turning. There's a bunch going on. As always, talk about memberships. We always need those. I don't know if you're still keying people's vehicles if they don't have an RGS sticker on them. I don't know if you gave that up, but short of that, and just go to the website, grab a membership, and we'd love to have you. And it's a great way to keep up with what's going on and be a part of a group that, it feels like at this point, we really are making a difference for forest wildlife, especially for, man, the two wildest, coolest birds opinion in the upland space, grouse and woodcock.
Yeah, that's a fact. That is a fact. And it is good to see. It's not like you're building RGS. It's like you're building I don't want to say you're repairing the country, but it is kind of a repair of the habitat. It just happens to benefit. And I don't want to speak for RGS 15 years ago. Probably like I thought of a lot of them, or maybe not so much with PF and QF, but I thought of them more like a big hunters club. I mean, I'll be honest, and I didn't think of the word habitat, but that message is certainly way stronger than it used to be. And it's cool that, RGS and AWS is not just, saying what needs to be done. It's actually getting done. And
and that camaraderie is as important as ever. And I find that camaraderie is strongest when people are really excited around landscape scale habitat impact.
Right.
Because let's look again at what underlies all of this, that grouse and woodcock both, along with all these other species like them that we may or may not hunt, are in serious decline over the last 30 years. We can't take them for granted.
Right.
And so if the Ruffed Grouse Society and American Woodcock Society isn't really ramping up to make a landscape scale population difference, then what the hell are we doing?
Right.
So we've got to it's go big or go home time, and these birds need us.
Well, we're going big. We're going big, Ben.
We're gonna pick going big for 1,000.
All right, you probably got some stuff to do. I know I was told to get you on by 9 o'clock. I don't know where you're going to. You're not heading down to Washington on a Friday, though, are you?
No, not on a Friday. So are we full screen view for this podcast these days? Everybody's gonna be able to see our mugs for the whole thing, not just
Well,
yours.
I don't. My daughter will put it up on YouTube. It's not a focus. The audio goes up as a podcast. And
Do many people YouTube it? I got a visual. Here's what I'm getting to. Since we're near the end,
yeah,
and it may crash the entire system, I might try this visual for those on YouTube.
Let's do it.
Can we try it?
Yeah, we can try anything.
Okay, look out.
Do I need to screen share with you?
No, I'm gonna. Oh, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. So we're not going to be able to do that, but
wait a minute, I can screen share you. I'm pretty sure I know how to do that. Screen share.
Okay.
No, wait. Wrong one.
See, I knew we were going to just ruin it with this escapade.
I think I got it. Hold on. I think you can screen share now.
All right, let me see. Well, let me click it.
Did it come
All
up?
right, let me know if you can see this.
Yeah.
All right, so this all credits as appropriate to the University of Maine and the Eastern Woodcock Migration Study. Notice the ticker across the top. You see it ticking?
Oh yeah.
With dates.
Yeah.
Look at the months. All right, so we're going to kind of reset our vision here in just a second when we get to fall, when we're real interested in these birds. So this is May, and these are woodcock that had GPS transmitters and what they're doing. So here we are in the summer. You know, there's birds up there. We're tagging a few birds. They're hanging out. October comes. Whoa. All right, everybody's getting itchy. November. Yep. But look at these birds start really concentrating on that Atlantic coastal plain. And now they're kind of settled in down there, jumping around a little bit. January, February, they're hanging out. Important landscape. Watch what happens beginning of March, mid-March.
Oh,
boom, there they all go.
Oh.
How cool is that?
It looks like the 4th of July fireworks.
How cool is that?
Oh, that one's going up. We're putting that one up.
So we'll have that playing in the background at CWE. I think there's a lot of interesting discussions that'll come with that. And any of your listeners, you can go and look at the archive data on the Eastern Woodcock Migration Study site.
Right.
And just change the little date slider on there, going back through the whole history of the study and see where those birds move. So pretty neato stuff right there.
Very neato stuff. I felt I was trying to watch the screen and figure out where I can get to. You know, I wanted to use it for my own personal reasons.
Yeah, well, there is a bit of a buffer on there, so to avoid any specific hot spotting. But to the point we've been making, those areas down south where AWS is going to be active are really important for this species. So yeah, it's part of the go big, right?
Go big or go home, Ben.
All right, Ronnie.
You want to close this out with a guitar, or should I just pause it and use your old audio from my phone?
Oh man, I would say neither. Don't you have a real professional to play some music?
You're my only guest. 10 years, you're my only guest that knows how to play guitar.
This is hard to believe.
Yeah, my only guest. And you didn't bring it. You don't have it next to you, do you? No.
Well, that's always next to me, but forget about it. All right, I'm getting out of here.
All right. I love you too, Ben.
Thanks, Ron, as always.
All right. See you, buddy.
See ya.